You ever get insulted so casually that it feels like a punch, and then because you're tired of being quiet, you answer in a way that changes everything? That's what happened to Andre Carter. And if you stick with me, you're going to hear how a faded old Chevy 5 careless words and one reckless bet flipped a life and then somehow fixed a lot more than anyone expected. Andre keeps an old 1971 Chevelle in his garage, not because he's flashy, but because it's all that was left of his dad, Earl. The paint is tired, the leather is cracked, the rear bumper has a small patch that never quite matched the rest, but under that hood lives a heart that roars a rebuilt 454 V8 forged parts work. Andre did by hand with friends in late nights and long beers. To most people, it's junk. To Andre, it's a ledger of memories, the sound of his father teaching him how to listen to an engine, the proof that love can be hammered into metal and kept running even when life tries to stop you. Andre used to race not for fame, but for the raw, clean truth of speed. Back in the day, he stood on podiums in Europe, 3 world titles a life that was all apexes and split seconds, and then he walked away on his own terms. Now he runs a small driving academy for kids from rough neighborhoods, gives them a shot most people don't get. He keeps his life simple: teach, fix, repeat. His dad's voice echoes in the garage more than it does anywhere else. Don't explain yourself, let them see, Earl told him. And Andre lives by that. One bright afternoon, Andre rolls through the entrance of Heatherfield Country Club to grab parts for the Academy truck's son making the paint dance on the fairways golfers in polos, waving like they own the air. He pauses at a light, and beside him slides a white supercar that looks like it was born to cut rents in half pristine, loud, the kind of car that announces wealth before the driver opens his mouth. The guy behind the wheel leans out sharp-creased shirt watch that could rent an apartment and smirks like the world owes him applause. "Where'd you dig that thing up?" He calls, voice thick with amusement and a little sneer, and he laughs when Andre doesn't answer. He circles the Chevelle like a vulture circling lunch wraps the hood, and then drops 5 words that were meant to humiliate Outrun me with that junk car, I dare you. You could hear the insult in the way the syllables landed, small, precise, meant to break something invisible. The man's name was Bradley Hawk, CEO of a fintech startup called Crestline Edge, board member of the club, a man used to getting his way, and right there he thought he had a show. He upped the ante casual like a man throwing spare change until it wasn't spare change at all, every share of his company. Andre could have walked away. He could have told Bradley to go buy humility. But Andre doesn't toss words. He drives them, and that day he answered with action. When the light turned, the supercar shot forward like it expected applause, but Andre was patient, reading the road the way old racers read weather. Bradley showed off brakes late, trying to make the car do what money can't teach finesse. Andre took the corners the way his father taught him weight shifts and throttle control, and on the straights that rumble from the Chevelle. It started to eat ground, and by the time they reached the highway junction, Andre wasn't a car behind a supercar. He was a gash in Bradley's confidence, 4 lengths, then 8, then a yawning gap. When Andre pulled over, turned the engine off, and climbed out, Bradley's face had gone from smug to pale in a way money doesn't prepare you for. What followed was expected, and then not. Pride can't lose, at least not in Bradley's world, so he called the cops and screamed extortion while Andre handed over dashcam footage like a man with nothing to hide. Officer Miguel Reyes showed up professional, even-keeled, and when he watched the video, his face changed recognition. "Does that? Aren't you Andre Carter?" he asked, because in this city, people do remember those who once raced for the world. That moment was small, but it mattered. Suddenly, the story had an old name attached to it, and that made the tape harder to bury. Money fought back the only way it knows how. Hire a lawyer with a hunger for shredding reputations and start a lawsuit that smells of strategy, not truth. Bradley's counsel, a high-priced firm used to running roughshod over smaller opponents, filed a complaint accusing Andre of setting an elaborate trap, dressed the whole thing up as premeditated fraud, and intent to coerce, as if driving an old Chevy through a public street was a crime. The press, always hungry for drama, lapped it up, and the Academy felt the first cold trickle of consequences. Sponsors started to wobble, donations stalled, and that steady community Andre had sown for years began to fray. But this story takes a turn not because of lawyering, but because someone remembered an old wound. A local reporter, Jenna Alvarez, got a tip from a security guard who'd watched Bradley act the same way before. Different people, same opening move, call someone's car. Junk question their place, imply they don't belong. It wasn't a one-off. Jenna pulled tapes, dug through club emails, and found something that made the whole thing tilt a pattern, a blueprint of exclusion and a memo from Bradley urging tighter community standards and a push to keep the wrong kinds of people out. Once you see a pattern, context starts to cut through the noise. And then, an even older truth arrived in an envelope paperwork from Andre's father's time working at the old estate garage, a firing record from decades ago that named Earl Carter accused of theft in a scandal the club never properly investigated. A man named Harold, who'd worked alongside Earl, reached out and told Andre about it, about how Earl was scapegoated back then because he was quiet black and without means to fight back. Andre had grown up with his father's silence. Earl didn't want to teach his kid to be bitter, so he swallowed the shame and left. But when the old file surfaced, the story changed from a race to a legacy. Suddenly Bradley's taunt wasn't just cruelty, it connected to a family wound that had been buried on purpose. Public sympathy shifted. People saw that this wasn't merely a rich guy and a show-off, it was a system repeating itself, and Andre's win at the light was more than a stunt. It was a moment where the old guard was exposed. Social media lit up donations for legal defense, surged ex-rivals from Andre's racing days posted messages vouching for him, and a seasoned civil rights lawyer named Marissa Holt stepped in saying, "Plain and solid, this tape is a contract." People performed. The high-priced firm wanted attrition delay until the Academy choked on legal fees, but Marissa moved fast, filed for binding arbitration, and forced Bradley into a corner he hadn't expected when he joked about a junk car. The arbitration was short, painful. In the best way for truth, the dash cam played in a room full of lawyers. There were witnesses who'd seen Bradley's pattern of behavior, and when the arbitrator asked Bradley if he'd said the words and if he'd raced and lost, he couldn't unsay them. The ruling was clear. Transfer the shares. Bradley signed the papers in a small conference room, hands shaking, and walked out without dignity because legal trickery can buy delay but not always finality. What Andre did next was the part that makes the story feel like something bigger than revenge. He didn't keep the company to get rich. He sold off most of the shares to investors who passed ethics checks, set up a foundation, and created a multi-year endowment for his driving academy money for scholarships. New locations. Coaching, real opportunity for kids who otherwise get counted out. The Chevelle stayed in the garage, same faded paint, same cracked leather, and when a student asked Andre why he still drove it, he said simply, "This is the car my dad left me. It taught a millionaire a lesson and taught me what finish means." The academy grew, sponsors returned, and the club that once whispered about who belongs faced community hearings and new rules about discrimination. This isn't a tidy fairy tale where good always wins and bad always gets punished. Bradley filed for bankruptcy, sure, and lost influence, but systems are bigger than one man, and not every sponsor came back, and some things take time to mend. Yet the Chevelle sitting in Andre's garage became a symbol, a quiet answer to an old insult. It showed that sometimes being underestimated is the setup for the kind of comeback that changes more than one life. So, what do you take from this? Maybe it's that power often hides in little words. Junk, not your kind of place, the casual assumptions that stack up like bricks until someone uses them to build a wall. Maybe it's that courage looks different depending on the day. Sometimes it's stepping into a race. Sometimes it's hiring the right lawyer. Sometimes it's a reporter who believes there's a story beneath the headline. And maybe it's that finishing what your people started is a kind of justice that money can't buy. If this strikes a chord, if you've ever been dismissed because of what you drive, where you live, or how you speak, drop a comment and tell me how you responded or how you wish you had, because these stories matter. Tell us whether you think Bradley's humiliation fit his crime or whether the legal outcome was fair, and share any time you saw someone underestimated and came up swinging. Like, subscribe, and share this video, and hey, if you've got a story like Andre's, I want to hear it. Which side would you be on? The man with the shiny car, or the one who fixed the engine himself? You tell me.